Imagine this, stepping onto a completely different pristine beach every single day. Not just for, say, a week or even a month, but for an entire year. Sounds like, well, a bit of a dream, right? But for the twin island nation of Antigua and Barbuda, that's not just a dream, it's actually their famous claim to fame. 365 beaches, one for every day. Welcome everyone to a brand new deep dive. Today we're really plunging into the captivating story of Antigua and Barbuda. Our mission, as always, is to unpack the most important nuggets from the sources you've shared, giving you a kind of shortcut to truly understanding this remarkable Caribbean nation. From its earliest roots right up to its modern day challenges, you're going to discover some surprising facts, I hope, and maybe have some real aha moments. We'll explore its ancient history, how its politics evolved, those dramatic shifts in its economy, especially the rise of tourism. That's fascinating. Plus its rich culture and what the future might hold. So let's get started. Let's unpack this. Where did it all begin for Antigua and Barbuda?
Well, it's a story that stretches back thousands of years. Long before any Europeans showed up, these islands were home to indigenous peoples. The earliest settlers we know of were the Siboney. Then came the Arawak people and later the Carib peoples. They built pretty self-sufficient lives, fishing, farming, lots of trade between the islands.
Okay, so established communities, networks.
Exactly. Then in 1493, Christopher Columbus sighted Antigua. This was during his second voyage. He claimed it for Spain. But here's the interesting bit. Despite that claim, Spain never actually settled there. No permanent Spanish presence was ever established.
Huh. That is surprising. He claims it, plants the flag metaphorically, but then nothing. So if Spain didn't put down roots, who did eventually, and what did that mean for the islands?
Right. The really significant event for colonization was 1632. That's when the British established their first permanent European settlement on Antigua. And this was, a pivotal moment. It almost immediately led to the introduction of enslaved Africans. They were brought in specifically to work on these huge sugar plantations. This marked the start of a really brutal plantation economy. It shaped the very fabric of society there for centuries.
Brutal. That's a strong word, but probably accurate. Can you give us a sense of just how dehumanizing that sugar economy was? It was profitable for the planters, obviously, but the cost.
Oh, immense. It was incredibly profitable for the British planters, yes, but the cruelty inflicted upon the enslaved Africans.
Wow.
It's hard to overstate. It wasn't just forced labor. It was a system built on, extreme dehumanization.
A system designed to control every aspect of life.
It truly was horrifying. And this power structure, it was so entrenched that even after slavery was legally abolished across the British Empire in 1834, that change didn't mean instant freedom. Not really.
Right. Emancipation on paper isn't always emancipation in practice.
Exactly. It's crucial to understand that. Emancipation did not bring true freedom or equality overnight. Former slaves often had very little choice but to keep working on those same plantations just for meager wages. It sort of perpetuated this cycle of economic servitude. It really delayed genuine independence for generations. Sugar continued to just dominate the economy for decades and decades, long after abolition.
That really hits home how deep those roots went. Legal changes are one thing, social and economic reality is another. So the fight for real self-determination was really just starting after 1834, wasn't it? What came next on that long road?
It was a very slow climb. The island's political status evolved gradually. There was a brief period, 1958 to 1962, when they joined the West Indies Federation.
Yes, the Federation. That attempt at regional unity.
Which, as you know, didn't last. But a more significant step came in 1967. That's when Antigua and Barbuda became an associated state of Britain.
Associated statehood, what did that mean practically?
It granted them full internal self-government, so they managed their own affairs locally. But Britain still handled defense and foreign affairs. It was a kind of halfway house to independence.
And then finally, the big leap.
Yes, November 1st, 1981, Antigua and Barbuda achieved full independence, became a sovereign nation within the Commonwealth, and that date, November 1st, is now celebrated every year as Independence Day. A huge moment of national pride.
A long journey indeed.
And what's fascinating, I think, is tracing how that political identity transformed from, complete colonial control to a modern democracy. During those colonial centuries, power was totally centralized. You had a British-appointed governor, and then this local elite, mostly the plantation owners.
So no democracy to speak of for the vast majority.
None at all. The vast majority of the population, especially Black Antiguans and Barbudans, were completely disenfranchised. They had absolutely no say in how they were governed.
So even after emancipation, that power structure didn't just vanish overnight. It sounds like it took a long time for political power to shift away from that planter elite.
Oh, it did. Reforms after emancipation were incredibly slow, very limited. Political power stayed largely concentrated with the white planter class well into the 20th century. It really wasn't until that associated statehood in '67 that things significantly changed, with their own elected government managing internal stuff. But, like we said, true political sovereignty wasn't really achieved until 1981.
Okay, shifting gears a bit to today's political landscape. How does the system actually work now in Antigua and Barbuda? Who holds the real power?
All right, so today Antigua and Barbuda is a constitutional monarchy. King Charles III is technically the head of state.
Represented locally, though.
Yes, represented locally by a governor general, but their role is primarily ceremonial. The real day-to-day political power rests with the prime minister and the parliament. The parliament itself is bicameral. You have an elected House of Representatives and then an appointed Senate. Elections for the House happen every 5 years.
So it's basically a Westminster-style democracy, modeled on the UK system. Does it have its own sort of local flavor, and how does it handle those challenges like political patronage that sometimes pop up in the region?
It definitely takes its structural model from the UK, yes, Westminster style, but absolutely it incorporates its own local traditions and political nuances. It's not just a carbon copy. And you've hit on a key point. Like many democracies, especially in the Caribbean, it does face challenges. Political patronage is certainly one issue, and there are ongoing calls for, greater transparency and anti-corruption measures.
But the core institutions are solid.
Yes, overall, despite these issues, its democratic institutions remain strong and pretty well established. It's a constant navigation, really maintaining that democratic framework while addressing those internal pressures for better governance.
Okay, we've traced the political journey, but the economic story, wow, that seems even more dramatic. For centuries, it was all about sugar, just sugar. How does a nation so dependent on one thing reinvent itself like that?
It really is dramatic. You're right. For centuries, Antigua's economy was basically a monoculture, utterly dominated by sugarcane, powered by enslaved labor. And while it made the planters incredibly wealthy, relying on just one crop made the island extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable to market crashes, vulnerable to, the soil just getting exhausted over time.
And even after abolition, sugar just kind of lingered, didn't it? Almost holding back other development.
It did. Production declined gradually, sure, but it clung on to its economic dominance well into the 20th century. Planters often resisted attempts to diversify. Why change a system that benefited them, right? But by the mid-20th century, the sugar industry finally, truly collapsed. And that forced the nation's leaders to look for entirely new economic engines. There was no choice, really.
And that's the moment, the pivot to tourism. How central is tourism now? I mean, what does that actually mean for people's daily lives?
It became the absolute centerpiece, the core of their economic planning. Today, tourism accounts for, estimates vary, but around 60% of GDP, maybe even more indirectly.
50%? Wow.
Yeah, it makes Antigua and Barbuda one of the most tourism-dependent economies in the entire Caribbean. It provides a lot of jobs, definitely, across different skill levels, but it also means the nation's prosperity is deeply, deeply tied to global travel trends, recessions elsewhere, even things like fuel prices.
Are there other sectors that need diversification?
There are others, yes, but smaller scale. Financial services, offshore banking, that's a piece. Construction and real estate, often linked to foreign investment and luxury tourism projects. Some light manufacturing, and very limited agriculture nowadays.
That 365 beaches idea is brilliant marketing. It paints this picture of paradise. But relying so heavily on tourism, it must make Antigua and Barbuda's economy feel like it's constantly, balancing on a tightrope. What are the big risks?
You've absolutely nailed the paradox there. Paradise, yes, but fragile. That dependence makes the country highly vulnerable to global shocks. It's unavoidable. We saw it clearly with global recessions cutting travel budgets. We definitely saw it with the COVID-19 pandemic when travel just stopped. That caused a massive economic contraction.
Yeah, and hurricanes, of course.
And hurricanes, a constant threat. Hurricane Irma's impact on Barbuda in 2017. That wasn't just a natural disaster, it was an existential economic crisis for that specific island. The entire population had to be evacuated. It just laid bare the fragility that can hide beneath that postcard perfect surface.
So connecting that back, tourism isn't just like an industry. It feels more fundamental than that.
It really is. It's foundational to the modern nation, its economy, its future. Its development really picked up speed after World War II. Antigua started actively promoting itself as a destination, investing steadily in hotels, airports, ports, the necessary infrastructure.
And that's when the famous slogan came in: 365 beaches, one for every day of the year. Genius.
Absolutely genius marketing. It instantly captured the world's imagination, and honestly, it's still iconic today. You still hear it all the time. And that branding success fueled significant infrastructure growth, developing the cruise ports, expanding the international airport, building large resort complexes, all geared towards attracting visitors, mainly from North America and Europe.
What about Barbuda, though? The smaller sister island. Did it just follow Antigua's lead, or did it try something different?
Barbuda always had a distinct path. Its development was much, much slower, deliberately so in many ways. It aimed for a more low-key, sort of eco-friendly appeal.
Focusing on the pristine nature.
Exactly, emphasizing its incredible beaches, pink sand in places, and keeping development limited, more exclusive maybe. But that path was, as we mentioned, just dramatically interrupted by Hurricane Irma in 2017, utter devastation.
That must have been just unimaginable. What's the situation now with rebuilding and tourism there, especially since its pristine environment was its whole selling point?
It was a catastrophic setback, and the rebuilding efforts, well, they've been quite contentious, actually. There are ongoing debates, big ones, about land rights. Historically, land in Barbuda was held communally, and the scale, the type of future tourism development they should allow or encourage, it's very complex.
Balancing recovery with preserving identity.
Precisely. But despite all these challenges, both on Barbuda and generally, tourism remains absolutely critical for both islands. It's the major employer. Simple as that. Biggest source of foreign currency. Key contributor to government revenue through taxes and fees. The government knows this. They're acutely aware they need to perform this delicate balancing act. Keep tourism growing because they need the jobs and revenue, but also prioritize environmental sustainability and build resilience to climate change. It's the tightrope you mentioned, a constant challenge for small island nations everywhere.
So we've covered history, politics, the huge economic shifts. What does all this actually feel like for the people living there? Let's dive into that vibrant cultural tapestry of Antigua and Barbuda.
Yeah, it's a really rich cultural blend, a vibrant mix woven from African roots, European influences, and broader Caribbean traditions. You see it, you hear it, you taste it everywhere.
And language is always such a window into culture. It's English officially, but what else is spoken?
English is the official language, yes. Used in government, schools, business. But Antiguan and Barbudan Creole is widely spoken, informally, in everyday life. It's got its own unique expressions, a very distinct musicality to it. It's very much alive.
And music, festivals. The Caribbean is synonymous with rhythm.
Oh, absolutely. There's a deep love for calypso, soca, reggae, and of course steel pan bands. Steel pan music is huge.
When does that culture really burst onto the streets? Is there a peak time?
Definitely Carnival. It takes place in late July, early August, commemorating emancipation. It's the biggest cultural explosion of the year. Think massive, colorful costumes, incredible energy in the street parades, fierce music competitions, calypso monarch, soca monarch. The whole island comes alive.
Sounds amazing. Any other big events?
Well, there's also Antigua Sailing Week, usually in late April or early May. That's a major international yachting event, attracts sailors and boats from all over the world. Big economic impact too, but a different vibe from Carnival. Religiously, the population is predominantly Christian. Anglicanism has historically been the dominant denomination due to the British colonial past, but you also have significant Methodist, Moravian, Pentecostal, Catholic, and other churches. Religion plays an important role in community life for many.
Okay, you mentioned taste. We have to talk food. What are some highlights? What tells the story of their heritage on a plate?
The food. Well, the national dish is fungi and pepper pot. Fungi is a cornmeal polenta-like staple, and pepper pot is a rich, savory stew, often with meats and vegetables. It's hearty and delicious.
Sounds like proper comfort food.
It really is. And being islands, seafood is obviously incredible. Fresh snapper, lobster, conch, it's abundant and features heavily. Plus, you get all those amazing tropical fruits, mangoes, pineapples, guavas, soursop used in drinks, desserts, or just eaten fresh. It's a fantastic blend of what the land and sea provide with those African and European culinary influences mixed in.
So how does all this, the history, the music, the food, the community spirit weave together in modern daily life? How does local village life connect with, say, global trends?
There's still a really strong sense of community, especially outside the main city. Village life remains important, but St. John's, the capital, is a bustling center with modern shops, restaurants, businesses. There are also very strong migration ties, particularly to the US, the UK, and Canada. Lots of families have relatives living abroad.
Right, the diaspora.
Exactly. And remittances sent home from family members abroad actually play a noticeable role in the economy for some households. And of course, nowadays, the internet, social media, they connect Antiguans and Barbudans to global culture just like everywhere else. But those local traditions, the music, the festivals, the sense of community, they persist very strongly alongside those global connections. It's a dynamic mix.
It sounds like a place constantly balancing its deep roots with the pressures and opportunities of the modern world.
And that's a very good way to put it, which I suppose brings us to the challenges they face today and how they're looking towards the future.
Right. So what are the key hurdles? Let's start with the internal challenges.
Well, we've touched on some already. That economic vulnerability from over-reliance on tourism is definitely number one, along with managing the national debt burden. Then there's the challenge of inequality, making sure the benefits of tourism or any economic growth are spread more widely through the population. And, as we mentioned, governance issues. Those ongoing calls for greater transparency, strengthening anti-corruption efforts, ensuring good governance is key.
And the unavoidable one for islands.
Climate change, absolutely critical. It's an existential threat, really. More intense hurricanes, sea level rise threatening coastal infrastructure and those precious beaches, drought impacting water supplies. It affects everything. Infrastructure, livelihoods, the economy, it's huge.
A really tough set of internal pressures. What about external challenges, things coming from beyond their shores?
Externally, there's the careful management of debt obligations to international lenders, like the IMF or World Bank. That requires careful fiscal policy. They also have to navigate complex geopolitics, balancing relationships with traditional partners, the US, UK, Canada, with newer players and investors like China, for instance. And strengthening regional cooperation is vital. Working through organizations like CARICOM, the Caribbean Community, and the OECS, Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, gives them a stronger collective voice on the world stage and allows for pooling resources on shared challenges like disaster response or economic negotiation.
So facing all these internal and external pressures, what's the game plan? What's the vision for building a more resilient, more prosperous future?
Well, the government is definitely focused on economic diversification. Trying to reduce that dependence on tourism isn't easy, but they're actively exploring options.
Like what?
Things like renewable energy, solar potential is obvious. Expanding digital services and the blue economy, sustainable use of ocean resources, trying to revitalize agriculture to improve food security, and pushing for more sustainable, higher value tourism models, rather than just mass market. Building climate resilience is naturally a top priority. That means investing in stronger infrastructure, sea defenses, buildings, but also better early warning systems, water management, things like that. And investing in people, absolutely crucial. Investing in human capital, that means education, healthcare, skills training. Recognizing that the long-term prosperity of the nation depends on its people having the opportunities and capabilities to succeed. So despite all the hurdles, the overarching feeling you get is one of real, enduring resilience. There's immense pride among the people of Antigua and Barbuda in their history, their culture, their independence. There's a strong determination, I think, to build a future that honors that past while seizing modern opportunities, even with the significant challenges they face.
What an incredible journey. We've really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From Antigua and Barbuda's ancient indigenous roots, through the deep scars of colonialism and slavery, and this shift from an economy totally defined by sugar plantations to one now so heavily reliant on tourism, on that sun and sand. It really is a compelling story of resilience, of incredible cultural richness, and just continuous adaptation. We really hope this deep dive has given you, our listeners, a much richer, more nuanced understanding of this fascinating Twin Island nation, something that goes far beyond just the headlines or the tourist brochures. It's about seeing those threads, isn't it? How history connects to the present day, and how the challenges they face now will undoubtedly shape their future path. And maybe, as you reflect on Antigua and Barbuda's story, here's something to mull over. As a small island nation so deeply connected to the global economy, yet facing these unprecedented environmental shifts, what does true sovereignty and sustainable prosperity actually look like for Antigua and Barbuda in the coming decades? And what perhaps can their ongoing journey teach all of us about resilience in the face of profound change?